Good morning everyone. This is Saurabh Khairkar. I will be explaining about data fragmentation. The contents covered in this PPT are as follows. At very first, we will see brief introduction on fragmentation. That is what actually fragmentation is. Then its advantages, its disadvantages, and later its types. So starting with the introduction. So data can be stored in different computers by fragmenting the whole database into several pieces called fragments. Each piece is stored at a different site. That is, in this section, we present the various fragmentation strategies and algorithms. As mentioned previously, there are two fundamental fragmentation strategies that are horizontal and vertical, which we will explain further. Then, it is a phenomenon in which storage space is used inefficiently, reducing capacity or performance, often, sometimes both. So, uh, the consequences they all depend on like its advantages and disadvantages. Okay, so we'll see now advantages. The very first advantage of database fragmentation is the very first is usage. In general, applications work with views rather than entire relations. Therefore, for data distribution, it seems appropriate to work with subsets of relation as the unit of distribution. The next advantage is efficiency. Data fragmentation. When we do data fragmentation, its usage is quite good and it is so efficient for the user. So data is stored close to where it is most frequently used. That is, whichever recent data you have used, it just fragments that is it is stored into just most frequently used data near to it. In addition, data that is not needed by local applications is not stored. So some of the applications in your system, you may don't require that for a long period of time, so that data is not stored. Okay, then the very next advantage is parallelism. Parallelism is with fragments as the unit of distribution. You distribute fragments among different systems, and transactions can also be divided into several subqueries that operate on fragments. This should increase the degree of concurrency or parallelism in the system, thereby allowing transactions that can do safely to execute in parallel. Okay, and so the parallelism is also one of the most advantages for this database fragmentation. Then later is security. As we have seen in every topic in our computer science, security is the main thing. So in database fragmentation also, security is one of the major advantages. Data not required by local applications is not stored. I have explained it to you earlier, that is in efficiency, and consequently not available to unauthorized users. That is, if I am a user of one system and I want to access the data, and if I am an unauthorized user, I may not use that. So later it is disadvantages. So there are primary two disadvantages which we have mentioned previously. Very first is the performance, another one is the integrity. What performance? How performance goes down? The performance of global application that requires data from several fragments located at different sites may be slower. And integrity control may be more difficult if data and functional dependencies are fragmented and located at different sites. So we have seen advantages and disadvantages. Later we are going to see the types. The very first is horizontal fragmentation. So horizontal fragmentation means there are also different types in it. That is, very first is information requirements of horizontal fragmentation. Very first requirement and information is database information. The database information concerns the global conceptual schema, and in this context, it is important to note how the database relations are connected to one another, especially with joins. So this was all about horizontal fragmentation. We'll look over the definition. The definition for this horizontal fragmentation is fragmentation partitions a relation along its tuples. Thus, each fragment has a subset of the tuples of the relation. So, there are two versions of horizontal partitioning. The very first is primary and other is derived. Okay, so what is primary horizontal fragmentation? I'll explain in just brief. So, we have intuitively discussed about process for primary and horizontal fragmentation. A primary horizontal fragmentation is defined by a selection operation on the owner relations of a database schema. That's it. It is all about primary horizontal fragmentation. Then the other one is other type is the vertical fragmentation. What is vertical fragmentation? Remember that a vertical fragmentation of a relation R produces fragments R1, R2 to RR, each of which contains a subset of R's attributes as well as the primary key of R. Okay. Vertical fragmentation has been invested within the context of centralized database systems as well as distributed ones, and its motivation within the centralized context is a design tool which allows the user queries to deal with smaller relations, thus causing a smaller number of page accesses. And it has also been suggested that the most active sub relations can be identified and placed in a faster memory subsystem in those cases where memory hierarchies are supported. That's it. And in this context, an optimal fragmentation is one that produces a fragmentation scheme which minimizes the execution time of user applications that run on these. Okay, so thank you. This was all about database fragmentation.